Welcome back to Becoming You Again. I'm your host, Karen Nelson. I'm a certified divorce confidence coach, and this is the podcast where I teach you how to reconnect with yourself, create emotional resiliency, and live a truly independent life so you can have an even better life than when you were married. Hi, how's it going? Have I told you all how much I love making these podcasts for you? It is one of my favorite things to do each week. I get so much great feedback from you all telling me how helpful the podcast episodes are, which is, first of all, super great. I love hearing that. But that is truly the icing on the cake because I love being able to teach you the things that have helped me in my divorce. And I love coming up with new topics that I know others are struggling with and being able to teach on those as well. I know that divorce is a big part of many of the women who listen to this podcast of their lives, right? And I unfortunately am only one woman, and I only have the capacity to help a certain amount of women working one-on-one with them. And I got to thinking about that the other day, and it got me thinking about what I can do to help more women, to be able to put more of this goodness out into the world and to be able to guide more women as they go through their divorce. How can I teach more women to love themselves more, to figure out who they are, to help them reprogram their brain so that they believe that they are capable of living an amazing life after divorce? How can I help more women get really good at living an emotionally resilient life where they feel independent in their thoughts and they feel independent in their actions? And I'm thinking about this and I realized I need to create a program, because with a program, I will be able to put all of the things that I teach my clients in one place. And then it's going to make it really easy for any woman who is struggling with this to come, to learn at her own pace, to do the lessons that apply to her life right now, and still have access to me because I will offer a live group coaching call and the replays if you can't be there live, and really have a place where women can feel like they are a part of a larger community of like-minded women who are going through all the same kinds of things and who are wanting to learn how to live a happier, better life after divorce. And with a program, it would be much more affordable than one-on-one coaching, which means more access to more women. And let's be real, I completely understand the financial struggle that moms who are divorced often feel. And sometimes that luxury of working one-on-one with a coach just isn't an option. So I am creating this course right now. I'm creating this program right now. I'm working on it. I'm putting it together. And of course, it's going to be called the Becoming You Again program. But if you want to be the first to know when this program is open so that you can join, then I want you to click and get on my wait list. Click the link in the show notes, or you can go to www.karennelsoncoaching.com/waitlist, all one word, and join the list there. That means that when I open this program, you will be the first to know, you will be the first to have the information, you will be the first to have the opportunity to join because your name will be on the list and you will be notified right when it opens. So again, you can click the link in the show notes or go to www.karennelsoncoaching.com/waitlist. One word, WAITLIST, one word. And that's going to put you on the list so that you'll know when the program comes out and is open for enrollment. All right. So now on to this episode. One thing that I've been experimenting with a lot lately is self-compassion and really stepping into giving myself grace and kindness, especially during times when every instinct that I have is to be self-critical, to be unkind, demeaning, judgmental. And so I really wanted to talk about the art of self-compassion because I truly believe that the more women can learn to give themselves compassion and kindness, the better they're going to feel, which is going to have them showing up in their life with more love, more kindness, more compassion, trust, grace, and curiosity to everyone around them as well. And I really want you to think about this. I want you to think about what that would mean for humanity in general. It would mean more connection, inclusivity, understanding. It would mean less hate, worry, confusion. So much of what I'll be talking about and teaching you today is from my own experiences and my own experimentation on what kindness looks like for me. And I'm also using the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook by Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer. Self-compassion is when you treat yourself the way you would treat a friend or a child who is having a hard time, even if they absolutely messed up big time or are feeling so down on themselves, or they're really going through the worst of the circumstances. Every one of us knows how to be kind to others. We're taught this from a very early age, to give to those in need, to treat others the way we want to be treated. I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, but maybe not. But either way, I was raised in the Mormon church, and even though I no longer consider myself to be a member of that religion, I still remember what it was like growing up, right? And I remember being in primary on Sundays as a child, and primary was where all the kids would come between like ages of 4 and 12 or something like that. And you'd go and learn and sing songs and have little lessons and, do things like that on Sunday. But I remember singing a song in primary that has stuck with me all of these years later. And the lyrics were, "I want to be kind to everyone, for that is right you see. So I say to myself, remember this, kindness begins with me." So kindness toward others isn't something that most of us really struggle to do. It's not very difficult for us. But what's really fascinating is that when it comes to self-compassion or kindness directed toward ourselves, we have a completely different view. Instead of self-compassion, we often show up as our own worst enemy. And I think probably a lot of you can relate to what I'm saying here. I remember back when I was first dating after divorce, and I had been messaging back and forth with a guy for a few days. And then one day, without notice or reason, he ghosted me, right? So many of you can probably relate to this. But for me, this was my first experience with ghosting, since it was the first guy I had been talking to since I had been married for 20 years. So ghosting was like a new experience to me. It wasn't really something that people did back in the day. Or if they did, it wasn't really talked about or mentioned, right? And it was different because we didn't really have texting 20 years ago. And so it's just a little bit easier for people to be ghosted. But instead of showing myself compassion and realizing ghosting happens to everyone, and whatever is going on for him, it's really not about me. Instead, I chose to criticize myself. I berated myself. I'm telling me that, of course, he doesn't want to talk to me anymore. I'm fat, I'm gross, I'm disgusting. Not to mention how boring I am. Basically, just staying home with the kids and not really knowing what it's like to have a fun life. And I'm telling myself all of these things, right? I was speaking to myself in a way that I would never talk to someone else, especially someone I loved. Like if my daughter came to me and was like, this person ghosted me, I would never say those things to her. I would be like, I'm so sorry. I love you. That guy's a jerk. What an idiot. He's missing out on the best you. You're amazing. I would say, I'd give her a hug and I would just comfort her and be there for her and love her and tell her how amazing she is. But of course, I didn't do that for myself. So I want you to think about this. How often do you speak to yourself with unkindness and self-criticism? And if you're not sure, then I would challenge you to pay attention for the next 24 hours. Every time you notice mean thoughts directed toward yourself, make a tick mark on a piece of paper or in your notes on your phone. And you don't have to get mad at yourself for being self-critical if you notice it. Just really notice it and go, okay, wow, here we go again, telling myself that I'm a failure as a mom. Oh, yep. I see that I just told myself that I'm fat or I'll never lose weight because I looked at the number on the scale, or that it was higher today, or whatever your brain is offering you throughout the day. Okay, just notice it. Mark a tick. And then after the 24 hours, look back and see how many tick marks you've got. And I want you to notice if there's room for improvement. My guess is for every one of us, myself included, there's going to be room for improvement. Because even for me, someone who studies self-compassion, teaches it to my clients, and really works to notice it, I still have a human brain, just like you guys do. And my human brain, just like yours does, likes to tell me that I'm doing it all wrong. And this is what we're working to overcome. This is what we're working to reprogram. Once you become aware of the toxic berating that your head is feeding you, that's when you can plug into the conscious thinking framework and see how thinking that way is making you feel and what that feeling is fueling in terms of your actions. So let's use my example that I talked about when I first had the guy that I'd been talking to. My unconscious blueprint would look like circumstance, guy doesn't text me. And my thought is, it must be because I'm so fat, gross, and disgusting. And my feeling because of that thought is shame. And when I felt shame in that moment, I cried a little bit when I was alone. I felt completely embarrassed. I got off the dating app immediately. I immediately deleted my profile. And I continued to berate myself in my head, placing so much blame on myself for his actions. And then I tried to resist feeling shame. And instead, I would try and comfort myself with chocolate or binge watching something on Netflix and stuffing myself to the point where I'm feeling sick and bloated, right? All of this was creating a result where I made what I was thinking about myself true. I was continuing to gain weight. I was continuing to feel gross, and I was feeling overstuffed with food. And giving myself more and more evidence that I was disgusting. It was like I'm thinking this thing about myself and then I'm proving it to be true through my actions and the way I'm feeling. So I just want you to notice over the next 24 hours how these self-critical words directed toward you are showing up in your life. Because once you can see that, that's when you can start to implement some self-compassion. When it comes to self-compassion, there's 3 components that make up the self-compassion triad. There's mindfulness, there's common humanity, and then there's self-kindness. So mindfulness is just exactly what I explained, right? It's just what I talked about, the becoming aware of what you're thinking and how it's creating your feelings and your actions. But there's a little more to this mindfulness part of the triad. It's not enough just to notice what you're thinking, but you also need to have the courage to face how you've been reacting to your emotions and instead show up without judgment. Because when you can show up without judgment, that is the magic of using the conscious thinking blueprint. It's going to help you see what's actually going on, and you're going to be open to changing it because you're not going to be adding guilt or shame or embarrassment on top of what you're already feeling, because there's no judgment there. You just notice it and then decide from there, do I want to continue feeling this way? Do I want to continue thinking these things about myself? And so the second component of the self-compassion triad is kindness. This is where, instead of continuing to be self-critical, you show up with kindness toward yourself, just like you would if it was your child that came to you or your best friend who was really struggling. I think I've talked about this one on the podcast before, but when I'm really doubting myself and having a hard time, I like to picture myself sitting on my bed next to another me. And then one of me puts her arm around the other, around her shoulders, and I tell myself, I'm here for you. And then I say, what do you need, love? What can I do for you? And I give myself that warm embrace, and I feel love and I feel comfort. And it's that love and comfort that I'm seeking that I am able to provide for myself. This only takes a minute or two for me to sit there and visualize it, but it makes me feel enveloped in exquisite kindness and support for myself once I'm done. And so you can try that as being kind for yourself. Or when I'm working with my clients, I'll often ask them, what would you tell a friend who's struggling with something, who's going through this same thing that you're going through? What would you say to them? How would you comfort them? How would you show up for them? And so whatever their answer is, then we direct that back to themselves and they show up in that way for themselves. And so you could ask yourself that same question, right? What would you tell a friend who is going through this same thing that you are struggling with? And then practice showing up for yourself in that way with self-compassion, with self-kindness. And then the last part of the triad is common humanity. And another way to think about this is calling it connection. This is where we can feel a sense of interconnectedness by recognizing that all humans make mistakes. All humans fail. There is not one human who has never made a mistake, who has never failed, because there is no perfect human. All humans go through challenges and have hard experiences. And then you start to recognize and remind yourself in those moments about this fact. So this might seem like a really obvious step to remind yourself about the human experience. But what usually happens when we're in the thick of a challenge and we're criticizing ourselves is we kind of believe that when we suffer or struggle with that challenge, that something's gone wrong or that it's not fair that we're struggling. And instead of feeling connected to others who maybe have gone through the same thing, we instead pull away and we disconnect ourselves and we make ourselves feel isolated and alone, and we feed our suffering and our pain because we're like, no one has ever felt this before. I'm the only one. I must be the only one who's feeling this way. I must be the only one who's dealt with this, right? We disconnect ourselves from humanity in that way. And so showing up and recognizing like, I'm not alone in going through this hard thing. What I'm feeling right now, others have felt too, even if the circumstances are different. The feelings of shame, anger, sadness, frustration, they're all the same for every human, and every human will at some point experience some of those emotions. So like for me, with the example that I've been using, I could have showed up with the common humanity outlook by realizing that many other people have been ghosted and many other people will continue to be ghosted. I am not alone in this occurrence. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me, and it doesn't mean that I won't find someone to love again. So when we can learn to implement the self-compassion triad more often in our lives, the more we are going to be in a state of loving, connected presence with ourselves. And that is what I want for you. When you can do that, your relationship with yourself will completely transform. It's an amazing thing, and I know that it's possible for you. So get practicing. Take 24 hours and look at how often you put yourself down, and then really look for those areas of where you can improve. All right, my friends, that's it for today. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. I'll be back next week. If you like what you heard on today's podcast and you want to know more about working one-on-one with me, you can go to www.karennelsoncoaching.com and schedule your free consult to find out more. That's www.karennelsoncoaching.com. Thanks for listening. If this podcast episode agreed with you in any way, please take a minute to follow, rate, and leave a comment. And for more details, make sure to check out the show notes by clicking the link in the description.